In 2017, Intelligent Systems released a third and final Fire Emblem on the Nintendo 3DS with Shadows of Valentia. It was a remake of Fire Emblem Gaiden, which was the second installment of the series exclusively in Japan on the Famicom. And the remake received favorable reviews from fans and critics for its impressive animation quality, storytelling, and art style. That being said, Echoes is a bit too faithful to Gaiden with its very annoying and archaic gameplay changes and interesting DLC practices, let me tell you. This game can be quite a pain to play if you don't know what you're doing, so today I'm going to tell you what this game is and how it plays. Hey, my name is Jude, and if you've never come at me, fools, then I'm here to tell you what is Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. So let's get that story out of the way, shall we? The game takes place on the continent of Valentia, where two neighboring kingdoms, Rigel and Sophia, go to war, both of which serve two draconic deities. Rigel in the north worships Duma, and Sophia of Mother Milla in the south. We begin the game with our main character Alm as he firmly grasps it to Celica via Patrick Star.
Firmly grasp it in your hand. Firmly grasp it!
What you say?
Well, since that ought to do it, we cut to a long time ago when the two were childhood friends, whose peaceful lives were threatened when Sophia Knights attacked their village, forcing Celica to be moved away to a safer location. And 7 years later, Alm chooses to enlist in the revolution known as the Deliverance, a band of rebels who wish to save Sophia from the invading Regalians. So Alm must fight back against the invading Regalian Empire and uncover the truth about his past and who he is. While Celica, after having a nightmare about Alm, decides to go off with her friends to find him and rescue Mother Milla, who has mysteriously disappeared from her temple and led the land to further ruin. And that's the basic plot synopsis for you right there. The game's story is mostly faithful to the original. Same basic plot, same twists and turns, you get the idea. Though there are a few new additions to the story, the presentation helps drastically compared to the original. Most cutscenes are visual novel style, with impressive redesigns provided by artist and illustrator Hidari, along with Alm's side having a greater focus on the themes of nobility and commoners, which is best solidified when Alm is later introduced to Lord Berkut, who served as a dark reflection of how he could have turned out had he been raised as royalty. And then there's Celica. I don't like Celica. Her side of the story has her recruiting new friends to make it to Duma Tower and rescue Milla, and her logic most of the time is questionable at best. Like not telling any of her friends about the most obvious of obvious bad guys that talks to her and leads her to the tower, and needs to be saved time and time again by the mysterious knight named Conrad. Gee, I wonder why the Dark Knight wants to protect Celica so much. Well, despite Celica's less than favorable story experience, if you're looking for a well-presented story with great voice acting and whatnot, look no further. Anyways, Fire Emblem Echoes has you play as the armies of both Alm and Celica, where you'll need to move your units across the map to defeat all the enemies to win the day. But unlike the original Gaiden, you now have a world map to progress in, as well as towns and dungeons to explore. And much like the games that came before, you have the option of playing on either casual or classic mode, which means that when a unit falls in battle, they're lost forever when playing on classic. And if this is your first time playing this game, don't play this on classic mode. This game is much more difficult compared to Awakening and Fates, in a way that comes off as artificially difficult, since the odds of landing a hit are a bit more difficult this time around. See, in games like Awakening, the odds of a unit missing at 80% were very scarce. In this game, your attacks can miss even at 80 or above, which is especially frustrating when you have a high chance of landing a hit, then miss, but then an enemy lands a shot with a very low chance. Trust me, this happens way more than you think it would in this one. But the game introduces a new mechanic called Milla's Turn Wheel, allowing you to redo multiple turns if things go south real fast. And you can upgrade how many times you can reset the turn wheel after finding a cog item in game. And let me tell you, this thing is a godsend, since you can use it to try a different approach than your first attempt that went south. That being said, this game is still playing by the stupid logic of when your main character dies, it's game over. No way to turn back the clock, your butt's sent back to the title screen. Thanks game, I hate you too. And before I forget, when exploring the map, you can run into enemy skirmishes that you'll be forced to fight off. These can range in difficulty, but it's best to face them before they run into you. Otherwise, the enemy will get the first move and potentially kill one of your favorite characters. Another new addition to Echoes are the various towns you come across. You can talk to several people here, which is worth doing since you may find a new unit to recruit, or trade items to get some decent rewards. Or you may come across some dude holding his arm on the sidewalk waiting to trounce you. Now the game gives you a ton of units to level up and get to know over the course of the adventure. Within the game, there are around 3 tiers of classes to level up, with a few exceptions like Alm and Celica. And every unit has differing growth rates that will determine what stats will go up when they level up. Alm's starting class is the Fighter, which lets him use swords, and that's about it honestly. But his second tier class, the Hero, will grant him bows to make up for a slow movement and range. Though he can only unlock this class after Celica reaches the Sage's Hamlet near the end of the game. And you'll want to give him lots of levels and experience because he is the main character of the game. Speaking of which, Celica starts out as the Priestess, giving her swords and magic. Celica's spells are especially good since moves like Seraphim are great for taking out terrors, which are abundant on her side. And she can learn spells like Recover to heal other units. Also, Celica can only be promoted into her second tier Princess class near the end of the game. Most of the classes are standard for Fire Emblem. You got Mercenaries, Cavaliers, Healers, Mages, etc. But one of the best parts of the game is when you get to promote your villager characters at the start of Alm's route. After reaching level 3, they can be promoted into a wide variety of classes, and you better choose wisely because you're stuck with them for the rest of the game. Now there's no wrong class for each villager, but some choices are far better than others. Gray is good in just about any class you put him in, while someone like Faye is highly recommended to go into the Cleric class. Sure, you get soaked very early on, but 2 healers are always better than 1, especially since Faye learns healing spells like Physic, which can heal units from far away. But the promotions I tend to stick with for my playthroughs are usually Gray as a Mercenary, Tobin as an Archer, Cliff as Mage, and Faye as a Cleric. And before I forget, Celica can recruit her own villager in the form of Atlas, and he's better off holding up the world because Atlas comes at a bad point in the game. He joins halfway through Celica's route and requires you to go off on a side quest to even promote him. So unless you spend some time grinding him to get caught up, he's gonna get beat up real fast. But the general consensus is that the Archer class is best for him, since Celica's only other Archer is Leon from RE4. Now most units can be promoted into 2 higher tier classes, and the game will tell you when they're allowed to after reaching a certain level. Villagers at level 3 can reclass, level 7 units can be promoted into the second tier, and level 10, they can evolve into their third tier class. However, units like Clerics, Mages, and Pegasus Knights will need to be at level 12 before promoting into the second tier class, since they don't have a third tier class to promote into. That being said, female mages will need to wait until level 14 till they can promote into the Priestess class, unlike male mages who only need 12 to go to the Sage class. So, you want to know how to promote units, do you? Well, guess what? In the menus? Nope. You have to run all the way back to the Middle Shrine found only in dungeons. Wow, what fun, am I right? Unlike previous Fire Emblems, Echo doesn't feature the weapon triangle, nor do they break after overuse, but they will still weigh down your unit and reduce their speed stat, which means it'll be harder for them to double certain units. And you can only have 1 weapon or item equipped at a time, so no stacking tons of brave swords or anything. But one of the most well-known aspects of the game is easily the new fort option. As previously mentioned, you can go into towns and find good old blacksmith Chan and trade or forge weapons for your army. And each weapon will cost either silver or gold coins to craft. Silver coins are usually found during dungeons or the occasional skirmish, while gold coins are far rarer from bosses and whatnot. Though you'll find good weapons in the world, there are a few that can only be forged by the blacksmith. For example, in Celica's route, she'll acquire the Shadow Sword in Act 3, which can be forged into an early Brave Sword if you want, which is best saved for the 3rd tier Mercenary class of the Dread Fighter for its high crit rate. And Celica's starting weapon, the Golden Dagger, can be forged into the beloved Zofia Blade. However, the best weapon to forge in the game is, by far, the Killer Bow. Killing weapons have appeared in previous games, which are known for their high crit potential, and this game is no exception. After an archer levels this thing up, they can learn the weapon art Hunter's Volley, which hits twice and has an even higher crit rate chance than normal. It may take a few paychecks to craft, but once you do, prepare thyself, enemies, for thy end is near.
My end is now. Prepare myself.
Now, as far as other weapons go, I already touched on the Brave Sword, but each of the routes has differing armaments that are useful. Like how in Alm's route, the Lance Rider's Bane is very strong since it wastes Cavaliers, or in Celica's route, where Blessed Swords, Lances, and Bows are really powerful, especially against non-living things. Another strong weapon for Alm's route is the Lightning Sword, found early on in Chapter 10. Though Pride is a damsel in distress, this weapon deals a strong magic attack in the early game. Especially with this weapon art, the Thunderclapper brings her through the ringer. and lenses like steel and silver are worth keeping for most of the game, though having javelins is always a plus since you can hit from afar. Every unit in the game has a set learned spell list, but these spells will cost your unit a set amount of HP each use, which you can see right next to the spell name too. Some of the best spells in the game include the Sagittae, which is straight up a magic machine gun. Excalibur for its high crit rate, and Fire and Thunder are good bread and butter spells. Healing spells can be used by not only clerics, but also mages who promote into priestess and sage classes. There's a basic recovery spell that Silk starts with, but Fae, if reclassed into a cleric, will learn the spell Physic at level 6. However, if you recruit Tatiana in Act 4, she can learn the spell Fortify as a level 4 saint, which heals all units around her. Trust me, you want Lady Palutena over here. Nosferatu is the cleric's basic attack spell, which heals them after landing a hit, and they can learn the previously mentioned Seraphim spell to boot. But one of the best cleric spells in the game has to be the Warp spell. This one does exactly what it sounds like, letting you send units very far along the map. And since the maps are big in this game, this spell can be used to cheese certain maps with the right setup. However, since Silk is the only unit who can learn this spell, you'll want to keep around for most of the game. And one feature that wasn't present in Gaiden that Echoes brings to the table are the various weapon arts. After a unit uses a weapon enough times, they can learn powerful attacks that can be used at the cost of some HP. Most of these are good for a higher chance of landing hits, which you want to do since the odds of actually landing one are pretty tough. Though I already talked about Hunter's Volley, there are a few other weapon arts that are worth using too, like Alm's double lion move from the Regal Blade, which only costs 6 HP and has a high chance of landing a crit, while moves like the Armor Crush are effective in his route against the many armored foes. So if you have a chance to use a weapon art, go for it. Now, one of Echoes' most well-known aspects, for all the wrong reasons, are the maps. There are 6 acts in this game in total, with 5 of them being in the main game. Most of the maps in this game are huge, overly huge, so you better get used to seeing the same old trees and grass fields a la Windows XP. And you have several dungeons to explore and grind to your heart's content. You can only bring about 10 units, so choose wisely, and you can smash pots for the chance of an item drop or hit enemies to get the drop on them before engaging in smaller battles. Now, most dungeons in the game are optional, but they are a good way to grind for more EXP and level up. Though it is possible to sprint through these, some dungeons do have an unavoidable boss near the end, and most of these will have a Milo Shrine to save your game and cure fatigue if you have it in the dungeon. Alm's first chapter is abundant with weak soldiers and archers, until you get to his final battle at the Sophia Gate, where you'll need to have units run around the gates to open doors to make it to the enemy units. But what this game loves with a passion are various choke point maps, like Celica's early maps in Act 2, where she has to fight off pirates, and there's only 2 spots to move and fight off the swashbucklers. So you end up forming a wall with units like Valbar to keep them from killing you. And when you get control of both armies in Chapter 3, you have the freedom to pick and choose which units go first along the map. Alm's route in Chapter 3 is mostly the same, but now with tougher units like Cavaliers and Mages. And I hope you like those early choke point maps, because Alm has to deal with maps like Desai's Fortress, which has a single staircase to move your army up one at a time. So using Pegasus Knights like Claire and the previously mentioned Warp spell via Silk come in handy here. Meanwhile, Celica has to deal with Fire Emblem's favorite maps in Act 3, that being desert maps. It may be rough, coarse, and gets everywhere, but since all your units' movement is cut in half in sand, these maps are a nightmare to fight through. Especially since Celica only has 4 movement speed. Ranting aside, the best part of Act 3 is if you choose to go after the bandit Grief and recruit one of his 2 generals, Dean or Sonia. Basically, if you fight Dean, Sonia will be spared and recruited after beating Grief's castle, and vice versa. And both are excellent choices regardless of which one you prefer. Though most people choose Sonia because, well, look at her, but she also has unique dialogue with the boss Jeddah if you choose to recruit her. Also, at the end of Act 3, after one army reaches either the gate or temple, you have to wait until the other army reaches said temple or gate to move on to Act 4. And the maps that everyone remembers from this game for all the wrong reasons are Nui Baba's Abode and the Lost Treescape. Alm has to fight through the map with the most hear me out gal in town, which is literally a giant mountain. Here's the best part, you have to run to the other side of the stairs to reach the boss. Sure, flyers and warpers can help a bit here, but since there are tons of far-hitting foes, like Nui Baba's Medusa spell, it is very easy for you to lose several units during this overly long battle. That being said, just like Atlantica from Kingdom Hearts 1, Nui Baba's Abode is technically optional. but it's absolutely worth it if you want to make future maps in Act 4 more easier. And Celica has to run through the Lost Treescape. After dealing with one too many poison swamps straight out of Dark Souls, you'll run into a giant forest, which is easy to get lost in since everything looks the darn same, filled with several chests and a ton of exits that lead you right back to where you started after finding the same gosh daily darn Miller Shrine for the 100th time. Honestly, look up a map for this one, because without it, you ain't coming home to Sweetie Martha anytime soon.
I could finally leave. Martha, I'm coming home, sweetie. I'm back in the building.
Oh, but we're not done yet, people. We still have to discuss the DLC and post-game. Fire Emblem Echoes features up to 5 paid DLC packs to purchase and 1 free pack to add to the game's content. You know, on the 3DS eShop that's gone now. The free DLC gives you the Milla's Bounty Packs, which will give you items like boots for extra movement speed, and the most useful of them all, the Pitchfork, of which there are 3 in the DLC packs. They can be used to reclass a unit of your choosing into a villager, and then to whatever class you want them to be later on. And a few good choices for these reclasses go to either Clive, Lucas, or Valbar, because you can never have too many mercenaries in this game. Anyways, packs 1 and 2 feature extra maps to farm items, experience, and money to grind away at. Pack 3 allows the option to promote your 3rd tier units into the overclasses, which are an extra 4th tier class you'll want to use for the post game. And here's the best part, you need to have your units be at least level 20 to promote into said overclass, which takes forever. Pack 4 lets you partake in prequel events before the main story, and even lets you play as NPC characters like Fernand. And Pack 5 contains the Cypher Legends DLC, which lets you recruit 4 new units from the Fire Emblem card game that is no longer existent. Cypher 1 lets you recruit the pre-promotes Falcon Knight Emma and the Paladin Randall, while Cypher 2 lets you get the Saint Shade and the recently shut down Priestess Emulator, Yuzu. Now both armies can recruit all 4 of them, but the ones I tend to stick with the most are for Shade and Yuzu, since he only has 1 Priestess with Delthea, and Celica I give Emma and Randall to, since she only has 1 other Paladin in the form of Conrad. And finally we come to the post game in Chapter 6, which I will warn you right now contains spoilers from a previous Fire Emblem, so if you don't want to get spoiled, skip the tips and fun facts section. After beating the game, both armies are merged together, and you're able to fight in battles across the Arcaneus Seaway and fight off pirates, mages, and dragons, oh my! Which are all incredibly difficult, and you'll make your way to the Faria Harbor and prepare for the Thebes Labyrinth. And you'll want to bring only your best unit since it features some of the toughest enemies and bosses in the game, which has up to 10 floors and there's no save points at all. So if you die, it's back to your last save. Thanks game, I hate you too. All the while, the player will read up on lore about a treacherous dungeon that no one has ever returned from, one home to the alchemist Forneus, who was sealed inside his own workshop, where he would forge a man-made divine dragon with his own blood, one which would haunt and torment the future of another entry in the series, The Creation. As an homage to the first Fire Emblem on 3DS, the post-game of Echoes lets you fight against the final boss of Awakening in the form of Grima. Easily the hardest boss in the game, with attacks that can nearly one-shot and negate your defense, and features Dragon Skin, which cuts your attacks in half, along with other cannon fodder units that are very difficult to deal with. So having Alm use the falchion weapon from the final area and high critical weapons will help greatly against this encounter. And if you beat him, you're rewarded with the final Memory Prism, which we'll go over more about soon. That being said, the atmosphere makes it clear that the creation will return. But hey, that's another story. Okay, so let's go over some tips and fun facts about the game, shall we? Echoes features a ton of amiibo support. If you have ones like Lucina, Ike, or Korn from Smash Bros, you can summon them as non-playable units for a single turn to help out. And the game also has Alm and Celica amiibos, which gives you access to 2 extra dungeons for more items and EXP. And the final item in Alm's amiibo dungeon gives you the Duma helmet, a reference to the man in armor on the original Gaiden box art. The game has a fatigue system which will usually occur during dungeons, and you can offer up food to Milla's shrines to ward off fatigue to keep your units at maximum performance. But you can also have them eat supplies in the menu separately if you need to. In order to access the DLC, you'll need to have a Spa Pass profile in-game, which is fairly simple to do, and you can access Milla's turn wheel in the menus to view previous supports and memory prisms, which are extra scenes that help give more backstory and context to previous story elements. Speaking of supports, these will be unlocked after 2 units battle near one another. Though not everyone has supports, we do learn more about them. Sort of. And they are worth it for those extra bonus stats too. In Act 4 of Alm's Route, if you head past this bridge right before the last Bastion mission, doing so will let you explore the secret shrine dungeon, which is not visible on the map and lets you get an easy middle shrine and a spring that lets you revive a fallen ally. You know, if you're playing on classic mode, which I'm not. Speaking of springs, various dungeons feature water fountains that can be used to boost unit stats or even a level up. But you can only do these 2 or 3 times, so choose wisely. Several dungeons will feature golden enemies, which will run away from you if spotted. And these are worth going out of your way to kill, because they offer more EXP than regular enemies do. During Celica's route, if you reach the Sage's Hamlet, you can talk to an NPC who will tell you the numbers 4, 8, and 12. This is a hint on how to fight the upcoming boss, Jeddah, which means that every 4th unit who hits him will be able to deal damage to said boss. In Act 4, if Alm goes to Nui Baba's abode and recruits the Saint Tatiana, the next battle will allow you to recruit Zeke, as well as cut the amount of enemy units in half. So if you want an extra gold knight and saint, you better climb up Fear Mountain. During the final boss, after the Dragon God Duma reaches below 52 HP, Alm will be the only one who can deal the final blow to beat the game. And you can tell if you want if Alm and Celica get dialogue during the fight. During Act 1, it is possible to receive the boss's item, the Draco Shield, much earlier than by normal means. The normal way is to collect 4 dragon scales and hand them over to this random NPC in the Regalian village, which will boost a unit's defense by 2 when equipped. Am I done yet? Cool. Moving on! So hopefully this video has given you a good idea on what this game is and how it plays. If you wish to purchase this game, it is still trapped on the 3DS system. Hooray! Though original copies are still relatively affordable, the DLC has been sadly lost with Nintendo having shut down the 3DS eShop. So if you want to experience the DLC nowadays, you have to find it through some alternative ways, if you know what I mean. And honestly, this game is way better with the DLC, because the base game is freaking annoying to play through, bro. Fire Emblem Echoes, while it has one of the better stories in the series, can be a very frustrating experience due to its archaic game and map design. Despite this, the game is at least worth experiencing if you played other entries in the series. And the art direction, soundtrack, and voice acting go a long way in making this the definitive version of the second Fire Emblem. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you all have a blessed day. Take care.